we go with the big light again. Hi, it's me, Anna East. I'm Anna East Salas, the host of the podcast 22 and You, which is about your DNA and the quality of light, time, and energy that actually moves through what you experience as your everyday reality that is based in your DNA template. Now, what does this have to do with a podcast that we're recording on Halloween in 2025? It has everything to do with Halloween. So I have a dear friend as a guest today, and we're going to do a little bit of trick-or-treating ourselves with you, our audience, because we're going to talk about the thinning of the veil and what that can actually mean. And here we are. We're on All Saints Eve, Halloween. So Paulette Stevens is my friend. She's joining us from Utah, and she's got some information about the premise of what we're about today, when all those kids are going to be so happy getting all sugared up, right? And they're all sugared up, but it's Friday and they can be all sugared up and get over it tomorrow. All right, Paulette, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, let's hear what you have to share.
Well, I am a personal historian and I get the stories from individuals, but I'm also very interested in history in general. So the background of Halloween is quite fascinating, mostly because it blends several different cultures into something that we are experiencing today, which I think is worth thinking about how we got to this place. About 2,000 years ago, the Celtics were experiencing a lot of intense weather changes and a lot of intensity. And so their celebrations and their worship tied to the idea of survival. And they really needed to feel like they were going to survive. So in their culture, the last day of the year was this day, Halloween. And the first day of the year was November 1st. So on this day, they were preparing ritual celebrations in order to burn away what wasn't good and to bring back in what they wanted. So they had festivals that tied to bonfires, and actually they did the burning of old things as well as animals as sacrifice in some cases. They also they wore costumes, not just of the saints, which was the day next that was coming, which is the All Saints Day, but also the devils and anything in between. So these masks were preparation for what was coming. The interesting thing about the celebration, it was called Samhain.
Sewing.
And the celebration itself tied to a lot of pagan worship, but it also was clearing the way for the protection for the new year, which they wanted, because they wanted to be able to celebrate making it through the dark time of the winter, because that had been where death happened a lot for them, is in the winter, starving, and the lives that they had in the Celtic areas of Ireland, Scotland, the northern places. About 1000 AD, the Christian church started to have connection to this Celtic community. And they understood that their celebrations were similar in some ways, but maybe could be more powerful if they brought them together. So the Pope Gregory actually brought the celebration of the saints from May into November 1st and tied it together with the Celtics' pagan traditions that were already established. So the All Saints Day on the day after was the Catholic Church's concept of celebrating all that had gone back to heaven that were worthy that were worth celebrating. But this night before continued to be the bonfire, the costumes, the dark, the clearing. But there was a very clear idea that there was a thinning of the dimensions in that period of time, and that the ones who that the people who had passed on had their spirits very close. Well, this is really interesting to me because in America, in the Mesoamerican era, they had some similar holiday celebrations, but they were quite different in a very important way. Their celebrations saw that the spirits came back in cyclical way. And so they returned back at this time of the year. And instead of feeling really frightened of them because of the culture that wasn't so full of heaviness, darkness, death, they saw it as a very joyful thing. And so it's interesting to me because when the Spanish conquistadors came into the Aztec communities, they brought with them their Christian or their Catholic kind of concepts. And when they brought them together, the people accepted them because they understood about spirits, they understood about All Saints, and they did their celebration in a very celebratory way, very colorful, very joyful, because they felt like this when the spirits were coming back, they were coming out of joy. And when they celebrated the evening before All Saints Day, they celebrated with a lot of anticipation. And All Saints Day for them, as well as All Souls Day, which was the day after, which was everybody was remembering their loved ones, they had their masks were colorful and joyful, and their celebrations were the same. So it's interesting to see how a similar concept was interpreted by the different cultures, and especially how it's turned into something that we call, the Mexican Day of the Dead, which is what we celebrate now, especially in Mexico, which has a lot of those cultural traditions. But the key thing for me was another piece of interesting concept, and this was that also on October 31st,
Yeah.
in 1517, the German monk Martin Luther hammered his 95 treatises on the door of the Wittenberg Church. And that led to the Protestant Revolution. And that was basically a signal to take us out of the Dark Ages. So this whole time period has felt like we were making major changes from dark to light, from seen to unseen, from known to unknown, and back and forth as the people tried to cope with a rather clear psyche, an unconscious psyche of what do we do with death? What do we do with spirit beings afterward? And the whole thing is very, very interesting because it's turned quite commercial and dark in our time, but underlying, we still have the unsettledness of just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And a lot of the other questions about our conscious and our unconscious way of handling the real big traumas that we have in life. So that's my introduction.
Thank you for that. I think it's a lovely, because the podcast is about culture, it's about creativity and the ways that community do whatever they do with their challenges of awareness and consciousness in whatever context they happen to be living in, whatever time that they're living in.
Right.
So the thinning of the veil for me, yes, it is an energetic dynamic. And I think it is an energetic dynamic that can be, I'll use the word manipulated. It's an energetic dynamic that can be manipulated, because when we don't appreciate the invisible parts of ourselves that we can't see with our quote physical eyes, we miss out how much our reality experience is manipulated by things that we cannot see. And so the thinning of the veil for me is not only about the Day of the Dead or how we are in relationship after people have departed. The thinning of the veil is how we appreciate the energetic dynamics that we think are invisible that aren't.
That's true.
And that's where I'm focused now in the timeline that I'm on in 2025 for Halloween, is that the veil is thinning, and what is pouring through into the environment, and people are feeling it one way or the other. The contrast is very high. It's shadow dynamics, as Jung would describe them, shadow of the psyche. It's masculine energy, feminine energy, the contrast, the comparison of energetic, that is electric, and feminine energy that is magnetic. And I would suggest that in the timeline that we're living, this has been completely manipulated. Completely manipulated. We are functioning, Paulette and I are meeting on two separate devices because there's been a manipulation of the way electromagnetic energy is used on this planet. And the emphasis these days is still very much on light and visible energy. And there seems to be less a dampening down of the emphasis on sound. Now, before there were movies, what do we have?
Well, we had the sound, the sound, the stories, whatever.
We had radio.
We had radio. Okay, that's good. That's where you're
I want to
going.
go to radio.
Good.
Because an analog sound radio, if you ever looked inside of one, had crystals in it.
Yes.
The crystals are a different formation of information than the microchips that are used in technology today. We are not using crystalline microtechnology today in internet technology, in movie technology. All of that's been wiped away. When we had sound technology that was analog, we could better hear what the real sound of the environment that we were in and the people that we were listening to, closer to reality than what we have today. Now, if that isn't a thinning of the veil, I don't know what is. So it's not just a spiritual dynamic. Today, we're living inside a very complex electromagnetic dynamic that has become, based on what we can see, when you're looking on your device and choosing what you want to focus on, that can either be disturbing to you, unsettling to you, or it may make you feel warm, fuzzy, and comfortable. But why? Because the invisible parts of you that you can't see with your physical eyes are interacting with information. That it is light and sound and some variation in between. That's another way to look at the thinning of the veil. So I think this is going to be a fun conversation today because we could go anywhere with this.
Well, we go back to how the conditioning of the experience through which we understand the information. And it's pretty clear that if you were living in a Celtic time, that experience of being cold and hungry and a long winter, a long dark winter, would set the framework for you to understand everything else. In a warm place like the Aztecs would have lived in Central America, an entirely different come from is there. So in part, I think the important thing for us to understand in understanding each other is to understand where the individual's psychic come from is. Because when you feel dark, you're not so eager to have unexpected things happen, like being close to spirits or something and see it in a positive way. If you're feeling uplifted and safe and you're surrounded by things that are comfortable, then your perception of what's unexpected and what may be available through the veil is quite a bit more welcoming. So I think in part we have to look at how we are individually looking at something to determine what those filters might be, because the experience always trains us to see what it is that we see as true and verifiable in our environment. So now we're here at a kind of a moment when a lot of people see the negative. It's scary, it's frightening. They're more apt to be controlled by environments and factors that might make them feel less vulnerable, as well as a light section that is saying that this is all an illusion and it's okay. We can see through the darkness. We can see to some other options. And so the actual question of Halloween doesn't seem so remote when you start to think about that. That's still what we are dealing with. Do we see? What do we see? Why is it we choose to see it that way? And basically, what is the human experience that has brought all of this forward? Like loved ones going away. Well, I know that that's a troublesome thing for people. And in my work with as a personal historian, that almost always is a marker of where something really changed when a loved one passed. So we're thinking about things, to my mind, that open up an awareness that if this dimension can be thinning, then what have I been pushing away and not seeing that maybe if I move the filter could
Mhm.
look quite different,
And feel quite different,
entirely different.
entirely different from the emotional perspective. And so when we're talking about the thinning of the veils, there's so much that goes into this conversation because of culture, because of human beings' fabulous urge to create and the fabulous urge to under or understand what
Yes,
is happening around them, what, as we become more and more evolved in our consciousness, what we're aware is actually being generated from the inside out.
mm-hmm.
And where do those two things come together as a different kind of the thinning of the veil of consciousness that is for so long been completely dedicated to binary code? Now it's either this or it's that. There's very little in between. There's light or there's dark. And there's very little in between, except I think we're living in a time now where the in between is starting to inform us on both ends of that spectrum. What do you think?
Especially the when you brought up the feminine,
Mm-hmm.
what I see is that the time for the extremes of the masculine and the feminine has passed. We did
Mm-hmm.
that with um, a lot of upheaval in our culture years ago. And I think what we're learning is that it didn't work. It didn't work to put the polarity into the relationship of masculine and feminine, attraction, receiving, all those things. It worked much better to bring them together. And in fact, it worked much better if we didn't have the polarity at all.
Hello.
If we realize that we are both. And there are moments when the masculine energy, the action, the protection, the providing energy has got to come forward. But there's also the time when the feminine energy needs to come forward. the listening, the receiving, the embracing, the nurturing, um, the quiet, the calm. And when we bring these together by conscious choice and
Mhm.
stay in a centered place, then we have the benefits of both. And it's not as if we have to choose, because it's actually a blend that is very natural when we get out of the programming that says we are born this way, therefore we were supposed to act in a certain way, and girls wear pink, and all these different cultural norms, and just let them go, because what's human in us really wants to come out now. It's not so frightened. The feminine wants to be heard. The masculine wants to be kind. I mean, we're at a place where we've hopefully have learned from our experience what doesn't work, because what does work is starting to feel like home.
What does work feels better than what doesn't.
Yeah, that's how we know.
That's how we can tell.
That's the emotions.
And that's what I think is so interesting about the thinning of what I like to think of as being under the spell of consciousness that wants to keep you in polarity because it's profitable.
Well, let's look at that, because that was part of what was happening anciently. The spell. The spell of what? The spell of the gods must have some charge over this, because why else would it be happening?
Right,
The church must have some control over this, because don't they have direct connection? I mean,
right.
a lot of the questions were, who's going to control all this? What's it happening to us for? Why are we suffering here? When people stopped thinking that the resource for the change was outside of them, they started to understand that there's something inside that's bubbling up that is coming true to say, but you can do this. You can do this. Well, maybe we need to create heaters or electricity or something to solve a problem. We don't have to just depend upon the external. And that's really important right now, because those who are feeling like in the polarity that the thinning of the veil is frightening, and they want to
Mhm.
keep it thick, and they don't want to see, well, they are just going back into a cyclical, but it's a downward spiral of more fear, more trauma, more unresolved work that hasn't been cleared up, when the ones who are starting to say, wow, I solved that, I can do
Mhm.
this, and so can the people around me. Take responsibility, take accountability. We can do this. We can make a difference together. Now they're having a different spiral, and it's going up. So we've got
Let
a
me
lot of strength
stop
here.
you. Let me stop you there because I think up and down is also another one of those manipulations.
Well, truly, I don't know what the words are.
Um,
Give me some words.
Spherical, expanded.
Okay, that's good.
Not,
I
yeah,
like it.
not up down, but spherical and expanded. So we're moving away from the rigidity of the line, and
And we're moving to flex.
we're moving to be able to flex because we can expand and we can contract and we can expand and we can contract. And when we need to contract for integration of energy and understanding and insight, that is not a negative.
No, no,
It's
it isn't actually.
right. And so we're coming into that really beautiful place where we're in what I call the third way, which is we're not just linear, locked in step, and we're not just so expanded that we can't ground ourselves in a collection of information in community where we can meet each other on similar or same pages as the kaleidoscope turns.
What's
Because,
what's
yeah,
fun with that is how, when the expansion comes, so does the creativity.
it comes from both. It
Well,
comes from
well,
both.
let me finish the thought, because the way the Mayans and the Mexican folk determined to envision the cyclical return of the spirits created all this color, dance, music, art, all this color. And I'm feeling like that's the energy with which much of our creativity comes from. But it also, as I've seen, that the contraction, the thought process can bring forth a different kind of creativity, but certainly deep, rich, thoughtful kinds of work. I just like them both, is guess what I'm saying.
Both are necessary to be healthy. You can't have one and think that all the color and all that's going to keep you in a place of balance, because it won't. The creative energy isn't limited to expansion or contraction. Every contraction, expansion, and the relationship of that dynamic as a living dynamic is the space where all creativity can happen. All varieties of creativity can happen, so that we don't begin othering individuals or people who create amazing art from being afraid, from being scared, from being traumatized.
I see what you're saying. I agree with you.
And that art is just as valuable as, let's say, Monet in France, who created from a beautiful place, always stable, always very well organized. And that was his way of navigating in a timeline where that was possible. Now, I think we also have to bring time in as another element when we're talking about thinning of veils. Because if you have been aware of yourself as a person, you have experienced, and you can email me if you have an experience, because I want to meet you, where time feels to go faster and it speeds up. And there are experiences, expressions of happening every day in people's reality where time just expands and slows down and makes room for everything to happen in a flow. Both things are true. Both things are powerful. Both spaces evoke what is essential to being human, which is unlimited capacity to create.
Wow, that's a beautiful concept. It's also interesting to me when you talk about time to consider that we are not just here for the first time. We have been on Earth in different incarnations many times. In fact, many, many times. And so part of what informs us when we start to allow it to come through the filter is some of the wisdom that we gained in those other experiences. So all of a sudden, how do you know how to do this? Well, you just, how do I know how to do this? And chances are there were experiences that you had when you were very proficient at this gift or that, or healing or understanding of herbs or some special thing from another period of time that you can draw in. So not only is the dimension a limited factor, a limiting factor for those who don't want to see it, but it also can be a very expansive and open experience if you are willing to see it. And that's exciting.
Not shut it down, because I'll give you a really clear example of exactly what you just talked about. I love to ride, and I started riding as a young child, and I love to ride both English and Western. And I was a time in my life where, as an adult, I was taking more English riding lessons. I wanted to practice jumping. And so I was working in a place out in the country where I lived. And in my riding lesson, I had a crop, and we were working on canter. We were working on the transition from the trot, walk, the trot to the canter. And so my instructor was on the ground watching me do what I would do. And she was saying, okay, now do this move. And I needed to turn the horse in another direction to do the transition to the canter. And when I did that, I automatically, without thinking, transitioned my crop from my right hand to my left.
Left.
And she said to me,
How did you know
"How did
that?
you know to do that?" It was absolutely instinctive, automatic, and she was blown away. She said, "I've never seen anyone do that automatically."
Except someone who's practiced it in another
Somebody who's
lifetime.
lived other lifetimes with lots of horses. And even being a horse. So there's that whole aspect of opening up. The function of creativity is not to limit us to one form, to one time, to one space, to one method, to one, this is right, this is wrong, this is up, this is down, this is
But
backwards, this is
but
forward.
it's the opening.
Yeah.
That's the conscious part of this. Maybe we don't know what's going to come through. Maybe you don't know how it's going to look by the time we finish or how the music is going to sound. But what's conscious is the willingness to be able to say something in me wants to express.
Yeah.
And for a lot of the generations, expression has been forbidden. You were agreed in this little place to be able to say what you think. But if you go out of the box, a lot of dangerous things happened.
Okay, let me stop you there. That's fabulous. Anybody here, please like comment on this. That's an amazing message because you need to understand that that was about how others got to siphon off your creative energy and while forbidding you to use it for yourself.
Yourself.
Okay? And we're in that big time right now, where in the United States alone, we are watching people from an emotional space who are contracting in terror and fear and insecurity and instability. And they are unaware that every time they contract a little more into that message and frequency, and it's deliberately being broadcast now, it's not an accident, they are shrinking themselves back down into a box. Meanwhile, all their natural gases and creative juices are being siphoned off by something they cannot yet see. I can see it. I see it when it happens. And they are beginning to die because when you release authority of that co-creative force that you emerged from and you no longer respect it and you no longer understand it and you give that power over to someone who does, that's the beginning of death.
Okay, so the reverse is also the beginning of life. That's why this little time that we're in, what the Celtics thought was the end of the season and the beginning of the beginning of the new year, November 1st. It's like we are in time of choice. We're in a decision portal of sorts. And individually, we need to say, how restrictive am I willing to allow my life to be? How much am I going to allow the thought processes that came through to me as a child that told me I was stupid, that I was a girl, I should be in the kitchen, whatever the messages were. How much do you want those boundaries to be part of your life? Because as we were saying, the creative part of us is also very powerful in that it dissolves what isn't real. It allows us to process and let go those shadows, change the reality. Oftentimes, when I've worked with someone who's telling a story, this is important because it's valuable to me as a personal historian. they will say, well, I just don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that. Well, as a trust builds, we eventually get to that they didn't want to discuss.
Yeah.
And they pour it out in this and that. And my sister was, okay, well, this was one gentleman who had a session like that on his sister. The next week when we were meeting, I said, do you want to follow up anymore with what happened with your sister? Oh, she was so fun. We did a lot of really delightful things. Now, what happened there? What happened was that there was a willingness to face it, a willingness to look, and that the energetic human spirit said, I'm not going to be tied to that anymore. And as soon as
That one version of that one story about that one person.
so when he comes back, he starts to say the other versions of the story, which he hadn't seen because he had chosen a story that no longer suited him, and he was able to dissolve it. So not only does the creativity turn into what we consider expressions of creativity, it also impacts us internally. It allows the divine higher self, the more expansive, more loving, more open-minded, less judgmental part of us to have some sway over the stories we agree to tell ourselves and others. And as soon as we can be less judgmental and harsh on ourselves, then the rollout from that is we are very much more open, accepting, and less judgmental of other people, which is in part a thinning of the veil as well, because it
Absolutely.
was changing the way we were limiting our sight.
Well, it changes perception. So that's another beautiful function of the creativity that humans are.
Yeah, we are.
It's
That's our
not
native
what we
being.
get, it's not what we do, it's who we are first and foremost. We are a function of a creative life force that's living in a biological body.
And one of the things that I love about this is that the thing that makes us unique from an AI or another kind of being is these emotions that we are able to feel. Because
Mhm.
the emotions are signals. They tell us all the time what's going on. And many people say, well, I won't feel that, or I don't like that. But when you just receive it and just flow with it, what you see is it's being a precision teacher. It says,
Right,
look at this. You
right.
are feeling something, fear or jealousy or joy. I mean, and that is human.
Well, I'm gonna just parse this out a little bit more because there's a disconnect now, big disconnect between what we allow ourselves to feel and what we're comfortable to think without question. There's a huge disconnect. And the disconnect is getting bigger and bigger. And so the work that I do is let's bring that back together so that your emotional experience is actually completely spherical and coherent and resonant with your thinking process,
Oh, yes, absolutely.
right?
Oh, I agree
Not,
with that
yeah.
because it's not separate. Again, the polarity idea doesn't work here because we
But
are
that's
we
what
are
people
together.
are being conditioned into right now is to maintain the polarity while they continue. And I have a whole training on this about the system of separation. It's called embodied wisdom. Because once you have been trained in the system and conditioned into the system of separation, and your family has been doing it, and your culture has been doing it, you can no longer see the forest for the trees. And so in embodied wisdom, we deconstruct the places where the disconnects were forced.
Okay, give us example.
Let's see, what would be, I like to use my own personal examples, but the disconnect between body and feeling and creativity. All right, this is personal. But when I was in 24, I almost died of a systemic fungal infection that got its start when I agreed to have a copper 7 put into my body after the birth of my first child, because I was still wondering, about the pill and, the diaphragm, blah, blah, blah. Copper 7, easy. You don't have to think about it. It's just there. What could possibly go wrong? Well, what could possibly go wrong did go wrong. But what I discovered in the process of that dying experience and being very sick and only being able to rest my body and go within and ask questions. The number one question was, why am I 24 years old and dying? I wanted information. I didn't want rescue. I didn't want not to die, although I would have preferred it. I wanted information, and I got it.
How?
Information was, as I lay there, and what was me learning how to meditate, which I knew nothing about, right? This lifetime, ha ha ha. First, it was like, I got to teach her, got to show her again, Harry. She's not remembering. Okay, let's get her to remember. How are we going to spark her to remember? Because like right now, she's clueless.
Put her
Okay,
in bed.
lay her down, flatten her out, she'll stop moving around, doing everything, taking care of everybody, and maybe she'll get a clue, right? So I'm doing that, and my husband's out of the house, he's working. Our wonderful little child is at nursery, he's fine, and I'm just laying in the living room sofa looking at the fireplace. And the information came that I had chosen by taking on the role that I thought, this is how you do wife. This is how you do mother. And that's how you do it. And completely releasing the part of me, born an artist. At 3 years old, I was carving chalk with a straight pin, making totem poles, designing totems. And people were like, how's she know how to do that? 3 years old, right? So I had tamped all of that down.
Mm-hmm.
And I had put a copper 7
To keep it there.
to keep it tamped down, right? Because I was going to be the wife and the mother and the innkeeper and the garden grower and take care of B&B people, because we bought this amazing 10-acre farm in Vermont, and now I'm dying.
Yeah.
But I got the information. And I got the experience of the near-death experience of going out. Talk about expansion. I'm out among the stars, and I am conscious. Well, we couldn't call it air. I was conscious energy, because there's no air in outer space. But I was out there, and there were other living beings out there who were speaking with me. Okay, this is your situation. And I was like, I got it. And if you want to go back and you want to reconnect with your who you are, which is a creative being, you can go back if you choose to. So I was hanging out there, and I was like, that's interesting. I had a young child, and I thought about the creative dynamic of what would shift for him if he grew up without this mom.
You.
And I was like, going back, Charlie.
Right.
Now,
right.
That is a super thinning of the veil, but it all hinged on my being able to get still, to ask a very powerful question from beyond the role of mother and wife. If I had tried to ask the question from any other place, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. So that's another way that the veil thins. And that's, for me, that was the moment that introduced me into the amazing creative power that human beings have to heal ourselves of pretty much anything. Because it's in your DNA. If your DNA template has been developed in that way, you're going to just heal everything. And I'm full testimony. This is not the only story I have about this. Real stuff. And then I began doing it on other people and doing things. And they're like, it was like the crop thing. Like, okay, let's do this. Let's move this over here and do that. And I'm like, how do you know how to do that?
Yeah.
So,
well,
I
see what I see in what you're saying that's really important is that there were some factors that assist you to thin the veil for yourself. The factor that, first of all, there was a need, and it was a big need. And in your case, it was a life and death need. In mine, it wasn't, but it was still big. The other thing is, contrary to what everyone says about being productive and being busy and being, go, 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 the reverse is where the power is. Because when you quiet yourself and you quiet your spirit and you start to go back into that center, you realize that your friends are there. And that's where the comfort is, that's where the encouragement is, and that's where the knowledge is too. Because once you can quiet down to receive it by letting go of all these other things that clearly weren't working, then you give permission for your team to assist you in connecting with the information you already know, the guidance you already know, the wisdom you already know.
Which is blending and integrating the things that you need to know, don't know, with the things that you do.
Right.
And a lot of people miss this, because I talked with someone in an interview earlier this week about the basis of our assumptions affects our process, which affects the result.
Of
And
course.
what you're describing is exactly how that happens, because and the stillness is not more valuable than the go, go, go. Each of them in their right order are perfect. But
And you can do it very quickly.
absolutely.
I mean, I attest to this.
Yeah.
You can move, 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 move. All of a sudden, ooh,
That
something else
quiet.
is coming in.
Yeah.
I need to perceive this a little differently. And you just quickly, it often comes with breath, but I
Yeah.
don't find ritual stuff works for me too well. It's just too instantaneous.
Right.
It goes right into that center place. And what I also didn't understand for a lot of years in my life is that when you ask the question, the sincerity and the genuine authenticity of that question is already recognized by all your team. And so
Absolutely.
that when that question finally comes clear, so does the answer. And it's right then. And you frame it in a yes or no so you can hear a clear response, and you can pick that up. You can pick that up in 30 seconds when you
Or
practice
less.
it, or
Or
less.
less.
Mhm.
So that's another good thing, because I have a program called 9 Essential Questions Method. And I take people through, how do you know which question you need the ask and the answer to? What if you don't understand the dance of the question and the answer and the immediacy, because they are linked? There is no question that is not linked to an answer, period.
But the question that comes up at that moment is
Mhm.
the question. You don't have to worry about the things you don't know, or you do know that this isn't jiving with. It's just at
Exactly.
that moment, that
Exactly.
is the question, that is the answer. And as you practice it, you can trust it.
Yeah,
You
that's
trust
what I
it
train people in.
more
Like,
and more and more.
how do you arrange your awareness and your body and your breath and your time and your space and your awareness of the parts of you that can't see, and then just feel the need and the desire that something that wants to be created new, differently, some other way, and ask the right question. Now, the question that I always caution people is, don't ever ask why. Why
No,
is a
don't
waste
ask
of
us
time.
what. That's no. No, no.
What
It's
if?
it's all about here's the moment, here are the choices, here's the concern, here's what I feel, here's my question. Am I on the right track? Doink. Yes.
Well, what if is a good place to start. If you can eliminate why and go to what if. And then the other questions that I've developed in the method are, what happens when you ask the what if and you just simply relax? Then what we call your greater intelligence team, that is your embodied wisdom, will, you say, what if? Well, then you're going to be thinking about that, moves into a possibility. And then the next question is,
Yeah. Yes.
oh,
Then the next question comes right to it.
Comes right to it. So it's a beautiful Tai Chi that I've developed with my essential questions method. And it really repositions people to move in that direction so that the expansion and the contraction are no longer brittle and they're
Well,
no
if
longer
this flexible.
disconnected. They're completely flexible and they remain absolutely connected.
But here's an interesting thing. The culture would want us to say, then we're breaking rules if we're flexible in this and flexible in that. But what we're learning is that the more expansive you can be, the fewer restrictions there are. In that you don't perceive them as restrictions and you don't act under control of them like you did before. So it's like you become more of a free thinker and a free
Uh-uh.
feeler in that expansiveness is really your reality.
You become a free, conscious, creative, dynamic. Thinking is a lower vibrational function of that
Oh,
dynamic.
I see what you're saying. Yes, I agree with you.
Okay?
And that's why it's so
Feeling.
fun, because we start to connect with people who get it in a similar kind of way that we're having the conversation, and we realize that we've just moved out of the very restrictions that 5 years ago were really giving us problems. And isn't that wonderful? Because in another 5 months or another 5 minutes, where else can we be?
This is a wave, and the wave has emotion. It has motion, and it moves. And embedded in that wave is time and consciousness and awareness and this dynamic of contraction and expansion. You and I rose on this wave as it was climbing, and we've made a contribution to that climb. We
Yeah,
helped that wave
we
climb
did.
and expand,
And we do.
and we are still
We're doing it.
contributing. Right
Yes,
in
we
this
are.
conversation, we're still contributing. Those of you who know will know. And then in that wave, with the element of time and the element of creation, here now are younger children, young adults, older people, and now we are the wave together. And we're going, whoop, and then we are coming down and we're sweeping up new human embodied wisdom that is coming into this dynamic as another wave of awareness, perception, transformation. And so it is, for me personally, it is so vital for people not to get overly emphatic about mindset. It has its place. But there are people who think that mindset is the wave. It isn't. It's part of the wave. Your emotions are part of the wave. But when you begin to misperceive that you are a dynamic, creative, vital force that is, for the moment, occupying this form, which we call human, there's the freedom,
Well, it's
ultimate
freedom.
freedom.
I like the image of the wave, but I'm seeing it as ocean as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
Multiple.
in the ocean, you don't question the waves going high onto the shore
You're
and
coming back.
then moving back.
Right.
That's the way the motion works. And that's a really good analogy that in the collective, there is movement, and that isn't wrong. The ocean isn't wrong. It's doing ocean things the way oceans do them, the way humans do them. We're doing human things. And rather than being hard on ourselves and hard on others as well, it's just good to see how fortunate we are to have this huge spirit, a part of it being in this form, being able to be grounded, being able to see, hear, experience all these magnificent transformations that we're seeing around us, witness it, remember it, recall it, hold on to it. And then what happens when we do that together is that we become more and more aware that we are all one. And this
Mhm.
this beautiful synergy wants to move, wants to create. And we don't, I used to worry about, if there was a unity, did that mean you lost your individuality? Well, no, because every drop is individual, every flower is different. We're all different. And yet, when we kind of work with that, the harmony of being in that flow together, there's a there's an energy and a joy that comes and a peace that comes that is really kind of what we're aiming for.
It's aiming for us.
Oh, I like that too. Come on in. We love you.
It's aiming for us. And
Yes.
I feel that the ability to open your own personal bubble, which you can do once you know about your own energy field, you can then decide whether you're contracting or expanding, and you do it consciously. Then you have the opportunity to blend, to merge. And I think one of the biggest miracles on this planet is that we have oceans where you can sit yourself down in front of an ocean on a beach and just watch what happens
Mhm.
and
Oh, and
feel
it's
that
and it's
freedom.
not and it's not ever passive.
No,
It's never passive. You've ever, I mean, I have great respect for oceans because all of a sudden what looked like it was nice and smooth absolutely crashes. Well, that's the way people are too.
yeah,
And it's okay. We're human.
yeah.
So maybe part of what we're trying to say with the thinning of the dimensions is more of a love for what it is that's happening, the awareness that's happening, the mind expansion, the ability to go to the heart more often and be more forgiving. And some people don't like that, and it's very threatening to them. But that's their journey, and it's okay too, because I
They've
don't know what the
been,
timing is for anyone
we don't, and they've been hurt.
of
We've all
sorts.
been hurt.
That's right.
And it's realizing that at this time, on this particular organization of information that we call the body, planet Earth, and all the life forms on it, there is always the potential for hurt, but there's
Mhm.
always the potential for healing. Now, where this planet is in transition is the what if. What if the hurt is a mistake and not really part of the original design? Will you be willing to open to the hurt is not part of the original design and live according to that blueprint in your DNA?
See, and we can look again at Halloween and the different cultures and how they handled the actual physicality of life. And in our situation, we have much more change or much more control. I can turn the heat up. I can go to the store. There are a lot of ways in which I can hold on to a more comfortable lifestyle. But the interesting thing is, we're all doing essentially the same thing. We're trying to navigate how we fit into here and how we don't. How we can just move move into more expansive places, to use your phrasing of expansion. But it was very informative to me today, um, to feel compassion for how we got this holiday, because for many people, it's just a commercialized one now. It doesn't have very much meaning. But for many people still, the Day of the Dead, the All Souls Day, the All Saints Day, has a great deal of meaning. And I think what we need to appreciate is that that's the way it is for all of us. we need to hold on to the things that we love. Hold on to the things that are valuable to us. Hold on to the things that lift our souls, make us want to create beautiful parties, beautiful celebrations, beautiful art, beautiful music, and then put our arms around the others who may not be so excited to feel that way, but maybe in time, that love is going to make a
We
difference.
put our arms and our ability to perceive and assist in comforting
Mhm.
those who have departed, because some of them need comfort. And I have another quick story to share. When I was
Quick.
moving to an apartment, and it was in a very old building on Union Avenue in the Stockade in Schenectady, New York. And there was a lot of that was when a lot had happened there. And during one period, the history of the stockade, there was a major fire, and the stockade, a lot of it burned down to the ground. So I moved into this beautiful old building on Union Avenue, and I literally had a small ballroom across the hall from the main part of the house, and there was a garden, and there was a beautiful kitchen, and then bedrooms, and it was lovely. And there was a big pantry between the dining room and the kitchen. Now, there was also a basement, and there were washer and dryer down there because it was like a modernized apartment. It was great. And so I'm unpacking, and my son is with me, and I'm like figuring stuff out. And I'm in the pantry, I'm putting things away in the pantry, the pots, the dishes, the glasses, so we can get organized so we can have our meals together. And I feel this energy behind me that really caught my attention. And I turned around and I see three human forms, not people, but light energy forms standing in front of me on the floor. I'm on a little step ladder, and they're looking at me. And I went, "Oh, hello, who are you?" And that one of them was a spokesman, one was a preacher, one I thought was a baker, he turned out to be a smithy, and the other one was a young child. And they said to me, "We need you to take us from here. Would you please take us from here?"
From the building, you mean?
From their situation.
Other situation.
"Can you take us? Will you take us?" And they knew that I could do it. And so I said, "Wow, okay, here's the deal. Don't ever like sneak up on the back of me again. Like come and face me." And then it's a much easier thing for me because that was like really distracting. Yeah,
Also dangerous.
yeah. Well, for me, was I will take you. Here's what the agreement is. When I have completely finished unpacking and my home is arranged, okay. They said, "Well, we've been here a long time. We've been here since the stockade fire. We died in that fire." And I was like, "Yeah, that's a long time to be betwixt and between. I promise you, as soon as I'm done, I'll take you. I'll get you where you need to go." So literally, I put up the last book on the bookshelf in my bedroom, my personal space, and I could feel them again. And I turned around, and there they were. And they looked and it's like, "You're done, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm done. Okay, let's go. I'll take you right now." And then I did the dimensional work to move them from being lost in that space in the in between where they hadn't been able to escape because there was no one to do that for them at that time. And there hadn't been anybody living in that building since that time that could do that for them. That being able to do that for them and being able to see them and interact with them is a function of DNA.
And
It's a function of
what
DNA.
lifetime before this did you learn that?
When you have all of your strands of DNA activated,
You
then
can access it.
you can access it and you don't even need to think about it. You
Mhm.
know that you can do it and then you just do it. So one of the major expansions that we're in right now is people are having their DNA activated for them, whether they're aware of it or not.
Mhm.
And then they're starting to respond. And this is another version of the thinning of the veil, because it means that the covering of what's been over a person's DNA template, which is an energy form that has been inaccessible for what a lot of reasons, we'll have to do another podcast, suddenly the energy is rippling because the veil on that's been holding their DNA in constriction under like a membrane is dissolving, and they are waking up.
And we are getting help. And
Oh,
part of the
lots of
help we're
help.
getting lots from our the solar energies that are coming in waves, talking about waves, big
Yeah,
waves of wake up energy. And also 3i Atlas
absolutely.
coming. It actually hits maximum tonight.
Ooh, no wonder we were having such an interesting day here with all this
That's right.
frequency.
So all of that is coming for our ascension benefit. This
Yes.
is cosmic energy. It has happened in a cyclical way because we are in a cyclical pattern, that this is the time for our ascension. Anyone who wants to go, get with it. But because all of this help is coming, extraterrestrial, cosmic, actually disclosure on the earth,
Interdimensional, you name it.
interdimension, it's here. And so what we're feeling is remarkable because it is historic. It hasn't happened in the last 26,000 years that
You,
we have been prepared.
right. And it is a 26,000 year cycle.
Yeah.
And the last couple of cycles have been broken down by the dimensional interface that has now generated the black hole at the center of our galaxy. That's why a lot of science is freaking out, because this was not supposed to be able to happen. They thought they were going to preclude this eventuality, and they like have a
Well,
big surprise.
they just
Right.
don't know who they're working with yet.
No, they don't. So we're at time. This has been fantastic. Now, I want to also let people who are watching know that Paulette has agreed from time to time to be the host and to interact with things that she's interested in and people that she would like to have on the podcast, because every now and then I'm gonna need a break. And so
I
this
was
is,
thinking about Hawaii sometime. You ought to go there, don't you think?
well,
Hawaii. Hawaii.
yeah, I have there's a
I
moment
know,
when
I know.
yeah, where I co-created that because my team was listening and they were like, "Okay, Charlie, get her, find a way to get her to Hawaii."
Hawaii.
So that's a beautiful thing, but there are other changes, and one of the things that I'm deeply grateful for is the community that connected you and I, and the community that I'm embedded in that community now, and the absolute honor of being named a U.S. director for the Young Entrepreneurs Alliance, which is a global 72 countries that I'm going to be able to have various forms of interaction with, and they're doing projects all over the world that are related to and in alignment with what we're calling this ascension cycle, so that the timeline shift, when it happens, people who have been gently moved and 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 gently moved. And there's tremendous help with that. And I'm actually here on this earth to be part of that help, and I know it. Here you are.
Yep. And for me, I get the opportunity to record and hold on to the story, the history, the turning point moments, so that in 25 years, when they say, what was it like?
What was that?
How did you get through it? To go from the darkest dark to the light? We can say it happened heart by heart, person by person, moment by
And
moment.
I'm assuming, and I'm going to ask you that you're aware that what you're doing in your physical body with physical tools and physical stories, you're recording them in the Akashic and Adeshic record.
That's right. That is true.
You
And
do know that, right?
they're not just for this planet either.
No, no,
That's what's empowerment to me when it gets very drudgery, when I keep doing the same thing every day.
right.
Just the idea that the wisdom we are gaining, eventually, when we vet it and bring it into its wholeness, it will tell a story, and it will always be about the heart of it. How we managed
Yeah.
this humanity, how we did what we did, and we are the victors. And I'm so grateful for our teams, for all that have made it possible for us to succeed, because we
Mm,
can't do this by ourselves. We
there's
simply
no way.
cannot.
There's no way. And the other part of this that I find really joyful, totally joyful for me, is not we have to do it together as a collective. And everybody's bringing exactly what they have as their own creative, dynamic life force, whatever that is, whatever
Just magnificent.
it's gorgeous, right? Whatever you
It is.
love, whatever that is,
That's right.
that's the way that your gift and your consciousness is coming in on that beautiful ocean. And we have this opportunity because of the black hole at the center of the Milky Way to say this is what it was like when it started to work.
When
So
it started.
you will recognize and you will do something way before you reach critical mass of implosion and destruction.
Well, it's just a beautiful cycle, and we're so lucky to be here, especially on, in my opinion, the freedom key of the planet.
Yeah.
America, because what happens here ripples out. So let's do it right. Let's be our best. Let's send out the energy the best we can.
Okay. I want to wish all the children a fabulous Halloween in your costumes, in your fun, in your knocking on doors of people that you may or may not know, and getting all that sugar, or maybe you'll get an apple, who knows? People stopped doing that because it became unsafe, and the team dark people began putting razor blades in apples. But nowadays, well, that was a profit motive because if you could package everything and sell it and make it safe, well, there you go. Now you've just made more money. But be that as it all may be, have a fabulous time. Enjoy every second of it. Make it a wonderful memory. This is my mask that I got on a trip to Venice, Italy. And Venice, Italy, when you want to see some like gondola with people dressed in masks and all kinds of gaiety, it's stupendous. So, from my heart, that a part of it is still in Venice, to the Venetians. May you enjoy the thinning of the veils. Thank you, Paulette.
Thank you. A pleasure.
Okay, take care, sweetie.
22 and You podcast is brought to you by Living Lessons Library. And we're located in Philadelphia and would love to have you become a member. Thanks for watching.